For a very long time, America questioned the intelligence, capability, and place of black people in society. And yet, some of the greatest minds, the most influential artists, athletes, and the most powerful leaders, those who have changed America forever, came from the very people the world underestimated the most. They didn't wait for permission. This community went from being invisible in an unjust society to finally being seen, stepping into the light and prying open that first door with their own hands, so the world had no choice but to acknowledge them. So the question isn't whether they were capable. The real question is, how did the exact people America tried to keep in the shadows end up becoming the light that guides its culture today? Let's take a closer look. On December 1st, 1955 in Montgomery, a black woman named Rosa Parks left a historic mark on the black community. All she did, simple yet powerful, was pay her bus fare and firmly refused to give up her seat to a white passenger, even though she was arrested for it. Rosa later explained her actions in a BBC interview.
I did this because I felt I was being violated as a human being. I had had a hard day of work on the job, and I was physically tired as well as just mentally vexed and sick of this type of thing we had to endure as a people because of our race. It did not seem right, it wasn't right, and I felt that I was being mistreated.
She didn't shout, didn't make a scene, she simply sat still. And that quiet act instantly sparked a historic bus boycott that lasted 381 days. It shows that sometimes a silent act of resistance, one that doesn't even cost a drop of sweat, can still ignite a movement that structurally reshaped the nation. Attorney Fred Gray, who represented her after her arrest, once said,
"I think if there was any one point or one event in the civil rights movement that started in the 50s, you can pinpoint it to the Montgomery bus boycott and Mrs. Parks, who's here, and which was symbolized by this courtroom and her conviction in it."
Riding that calm but unstoppable domino effect, Martin Luther King Jr. stepped onto the stage. In 1963, he stood before more than 250,000 people in Washington, District of Columbia, and delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech, directly contributing to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
At the time, the New York Times reported on the 200,000 March for Civil Rights in Orderly Washington rally, noting that peroration by Dr. King sums up a day the Capitol will remember. He turned a personal belief into the momentum of an entire nation, using words to build a shared dream that could dismantle brutal legal barriers. On the surface, this looked like the peak of connection, the ultimate proof that words can be bridges instead of weapons. Meanwhile, from another angle, Malcolm X poured a cold splash of reality onto the situation. In 1964, through his speech, "The Ballot or the Bullet," he delivered a razor-sharp message about social and political issues.
Rich nations. This isn't by having independence and the right to vote in the political world body, it has enabled the dark nations to band together and use the strength of their ballot to force the wealthy nations, which are the white nations, into giving more independence to other nations who are still under their jurisdiction. You and I have to look at this and understand this, that the ballot is as powerful as the bullet.
According to the New York Times, through his hard-edged messages, he helped grow the membership of the Nation of Islam from around 400 members in 1949 to 40,000 in just a few years, with Malcolm X as the key figure who brought the organization into the spotlight before he left it. He wasn't interested in keeping the peace for the sake of appearances. Instead, he directly awakened self-respect, pride, and a justified anger buried deep within people. This might have been a necessary wake-up call for a community to truly recognize their own value and stop bowing their heads. The Root once asked a compelling question: who was the unsung hero of the 1964 Civil Rights Act? To the public eye, it looked like Dr. King's march changed everything, but the real story might be something else. It was the combined pressure, the quiet boycotts of Rosa Parks, the razor-sharp reality checks from Malcolm X. Together, they forced the creation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They didn't just ask for change, they used federal power to permanently strip away discriminatory local laws. The civil rights movement forced the door open, but what happened next proved that Black Americans weren't just going to walk through it, they were going to own the room. Once given the chance, their sheer talent forced society to rub its eyes and reconsider everything. We're talking about the story of mathematician Katherine Johnson playing out like a complete plot twist against the stereotypes of her time. According to the LA Times, she manually verified the calculations of an early NASA computer, the IBM 7090, which plotted John Glenn's orbits around the planet. Get the girl to check the numbers. A computer-skeptical Glenn insisted in the days before the launch. She simply delivered equations so precise that NASA had no choice but to entrust an entire space mission to her. Her story was later turned into the Oscar-nominated film Hidden Figures, and at age 97 she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States.
In her 33 years at NASA, Katherine was a pioneer who broke the barriers of race and gender, showing generations of young people that everyone can excel in math and science and reach for the stars.
Leaving behind the complex numbers of research labs and stepping onto the green grass of baseball, we encounter a different kind of genius. Here, Jackie Robinson seemed to use silence itself to create the loudest impact. In 1947, when he took the field wearing the uniform of the Brooklyn Dodgers, he faced some of the harshest insults imaginable. And in 1955, he helped the Dodgers win the World Series against the New York Yankees. Scott Simon, author of Jackie Robinson and the Integration of Baseball, and Kurt Menefee shared their thoughts on the legend.
The valor with which Jackie Robinson responded to the jeers and the hatred and the bigoted remarks in the catcalls is one of the great silent portraits in American history.
After Jackie Robinson left baseball, his fight wasn't over. I mean, he continued to fight for civil rights. He was a member of the NAACP's upper management, campaigned for them, campaigned with Dr. King to try and integrate a lot of America. Also, opened up a bank in Harlem. I mean, this was a guy who this meant more to him than just his legacy as a baseball player.
In a way, this resilience wasn't just athletic skill, it completely redefined who had the right to stand on that field with dignity. But while Robinson chose silence stepping into the boxing ring, Muhammad Ali decided to turn sports into a massive loudspeaker. It's as if he didn't just want to win fights, he wanted to knock out outdated norms as well. According to Time magazine, Ali converted in 1964, seeing it as a defining moment of his life. He viewed Christianity as the religion of the white establishment. He also changed his name and declared, "Cassius Clay is a slave name. I didn't choose it and I don't want it. I am Muhammad Ali, a free name." And most notably, in 1967, at the peak of his career as heavyweight champion, he refused to go to war in Vietnam, citing his beliefs.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. What, I'm going to shoot them for what? How can I go shoot them? Them little poor little black people, little babies and children and women. How can I shoot them poor people? I would just take me to jail.
All of these actions show how he turned athletic talent into a global declaration of personal identity. From a boxer with a graceful fighting style and undeniable charisma on the mic, to someone willing to stand against war, he proved that he doesn't just win medals, he can change what a true champion looks like on their own terms. And this undeniable excellence didn't just stay in laboratories or sports arenas, it seamlessly infiltrated everyday life through pop culture. The journey of black artists in the American entertainment industry has never been a straight line to respect. Superficially looking in, the early stages of a career often seem like a numbers game. Ticket sales, chart rankings, commercial wins. In other words, just success in its simplest form. But over time, that process starts to shift. To kick things off, James Brown turned music into unapologetic pride, raw, original, and impossible to ignore. On stage, his confidence wasn't subtle. It came through loud and clear in his voice and every electrifying dance move. In 1968, when the song Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud dropped, it racked up millions of listens. The New York Times pointed out that it was precisely because of widespread colorism that James Brown's anthem posed such a challenge, feeling thrilling, even liberating, and hitting audiences with undeniable force. The paper called it one of the landmark cultural texts of the 1960s, helping redefine black pride in the context of colorism and racial discrimination. This wasn't just a song, it was a cultural statement with serious weight. Ultimately, this proved that he refused to reshape his identity just to fit existing media standards. He stayed true to where he came from, delivered social messages straight through his lyrics, and let the audience decide how to take it. Following that sense of authenticity, Nina Simone brought a different angle, one rooted in depth and sophistication. With formal training in classical vocal techniques and piano, she created something undeniably refined. Through songs like Mississippi Goddam, written in just 1 hour after two violent events in 1963, the assassination of Medgar Evers and the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, she turned emotion into something sharp, immediate, and impossible to ignore. Again, the New York Times described Mississippi Goddam as her most powerful protest song, a landmark cultural text, a movement staple, and one of the works that set a new standard for what it meant to be an American artist. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? She didn't just make music, she expanded the boundaries of what a pop artist could be by placing politics front and center. But what people didn't realize was how aggressively the doors were locked against him. Previously, MTV practically refused to play black artists, effectively keeping them out of the mainstream. MJ didn't just ask for a spot on the playlist. He dropped Thriller, hitting the industry with such an undeniable, massive force that the network faced a choice: play his music or become irrelevant. According to the New York Times, the Billie Jean video finally brought black music to MTV, a network that had previously given very limited airtime to artists of color. And this is where things started to change. With tens of millions of copies sold for the album Thriller, he set a new benchmark for the music industry, one that international artists would measure themselves against for decades. MJ also didn't hold back when it came to calling out injustice against black artists in the entertainment world.
This is very important because throughout the years, black artists have been taken advantage of completely. And it's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice. The record companies really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists.
In the entertainment industry, the greatest power lies in reach and repetition. It seems that when a song is played over and over across global television channels and lands in the playlists of millions of radio stations worldwide, audiences absorb it almost automatically, just to satisfy their everyday need for entertainment. Traditionally, it looks like global audiences no longer have the time, or maybe even the interest, to question an artist's background, origins, or race. They're too busy copying the dance moves and singing along to the catchy hooks stuck in their heads. Ultimately, all three legends created the moment everything changed. When excellence was no longer questioned, it was admired. This might be the clearest proof that popular culture can actually reshape social structures. And from there, their influence didn't just stay inside recording studios. From brightly lit stages, they stepped straight into the highest centers of power in the United States. It seems that from the 1980s to the early 2000s, America had some pretty specific, unspoken rules about who got to show up on television and who got to run the political game. Before these two figures entered the picture, daytime TV was mostly just light entertainment, and the government system had been run by people who looked and came from almost identical backgrounds for over 200 years. At first glance, it felt like the idea of a black woman and a black man becoming two of the most influential forces shaping American culture and law was, well, a long shot. And yet, history flipped that expectation on its head. The case of Oprah Winfrey is a crystal clear example of soft power in action. According to PBS News, 48 million viewers is the estimated number of people who watch The Oprah Winfrey Show every week in the United States. With that kind of massive reach, Oprah Winfrey held the power to directly influence how millions of people think. She brought topics like racism, psychology, and education into everyday conversations on national television, something daytime TV had never really done before. Especially within the black community, her influence showed up not just in conversations, but in real financial and employment outcomes. According to Forbes, she became the first black person and the first woman to make the global billionaire list in 2003, thanks to her ownership of Harpo Productions. She built Harpo Studios, created thousands of jobs, and showed her community that they could own media companies themselves. Through her book club, she introduced works by black authors like Toni Morrison to the masses. She wasn't just driving sales or pushing direct marketing, she was facilitating a national, empathetic conversation about trauma, history, and healing right in people's living rooms. The New York Times called it social engineering. This stands as proof that true power isn't just about economic weight. It's about using personalized, deeply human storytelling to shift the emotional intelligence of an entire generation, pulling marginalized stories right into the center of popular culture. As public perception of Black Americans gradually shifted over time, real political results followed. In 2008, he received 69.4 million votes to become the 44th President of the United States. He rose to the highest position in a political system that, in the past, had passed laws designed to exclude people of his race from even voting. For the Black community, the presence of a Black family in the White House marked a huge shift in perception. The Los Angeles Times described his victory as a leap forward in the march toward equality. When Obama was born, people with his skin color couldn't even vote in parts of America. This election carried historic weight and a deep sense of pride for African Americans. Meanwhile, the New York Times called his presidency the sweeping away of the last racial barrier in American politics, a strikingly symbolic moment in the evolution of the nation's complicated racial history. During his time in office, Obama directly signed the Fair Sentencing Act in 2010, reducing sentencing disparities that had disproportionately affected Black Americans. He also launched the My Brother's Keeper program to provide funding and educational opportunities for young men of color. This might be an irreversible milestone because official records and history books are required to document the policies and changes made during his presidency. These historical facts and events make one thing very clear. This was no longer about proving worth, this was about leading a nation. Looking at these two figures, you can clearly see the shift in the position of Black Americans in society. It appears their responsibility had become using their voice, their influence, and their power to push American society toward greater fairness and equality. And even then, holding power was never the final destination. The real goal was to break old molds, so the next generation could define themselves on their own terms. Stepping into the art world, we can see this clearly through Jean-Michel Basquiat. The New York Times reported that his painting Untitled, 1982, sold for $110.5 million at Sotheby's, New York. That sale set a record for any work by an American artist, surpassing the previous record held by Andy Warhol. And at the time, it became one of the most expensive paintings ever sold at auction. The paper described it as an exciting moment, filled with audible gasps from the room, and noted how Basquiat, once labeled a graffiti rebel, had now become the most expensive American artist at auction. It almost feels like Basquiat took the raw chaos and wild energy of the streets and placed it right in the center of the world's most prestigious museums. In doing so, he created an entirely new aesthetic system, one where art is no longer bound by academic rules. From the outside looking in, he showed young Black audiences that their street culture holds real, high value. Even Jay-Z once spoke about Basquiat's influence on him.
You can say something right now and it would inspire me to write a song or something to happen. You know, most kings just happen to be inspired by a Basquiat drawing, you know, the drawing, and he had the most young kings get their head cut off on the bottom. And I looked at that and I was like, it's powerful.
This may have opened up a whole new mindset. They don't need to imitate elite white artistic styles to be accepted. Their original identity alone is powerful enough to make the wealthiest collectors pay top dollar. Shifting over to science, Neil deGrasse Tyson breaks stereotypes in a completely different way. He is one of the most widely followed astrophysicists in the United States. Tyson has more than 13.6 million followers on X, around 2.7 million on Instagram, 6 million on TikTok, and his Star Talk channel has racked up hundreds of millions of views. It appears that he has become a voice representing both intellectual depth and the beauty of the universe. For Black communities, his influence carries especially important meaning. Tyson himself has spoken about stereotypes surrounding people of color.
Parents just gave us advice on how to stay alive, basically, in a world where that's dangerous for anyone, and a world that in no way was able to see or recognize the ambitions I had for myself. People with my skin color weren't studying astrophysics. So there were expectations I would be an athlete or some other kind of entertainer, things where they've seen Black people before.
Looking closely, he has replaced the familiar image of white scientists with an entirely new intellectual archetype. Black children can absolutely grow up to become some of the greatest minds, confidently going on television to talk about massive concepts like galaxies instead of being limited to the usual career paths people expect. With these two icons, it becomes clear that they didn't just succeed within an existing system. They completely redefined what success even means. The reality is they can excel in any field they choose, whether that's a quiet art gallery or a space station orbiting far beyond Earth. Breaking these limits may be the single most important factor in allowing a community to truly grow freely. When you put all these pieces together, the bigger picture doesn't stop at a few exceptional individuals or isolated success stories. One could argue that this journey was a continuous success at every level of society, creating immense pressure forcing American society to rewrite laws, restructure the entertainment industry, redistribute political power, and completely rethink how human ability is measured. They didn't just rise, they changed the direction of an entire country. All of these Black legends changed America forever. They proved something the world once doubted. Greatness was never limited by race, only by opportunity. It leaves us asking, how many hidden legends are still standing in the shadows right now, just one open door away from changing everything? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.